Welcome everyone to the Top Prime Rankings channel. Today, we dive into history, unraveling the intricate threads that weave the tale of the Munich Agreement. In the year 1938, the world was on the brink of war. Four nations, Britain, France, Germany and Italy, came together in Munich, Germany, in a bid to maintain peace. This gathering resulted in the Munich Agreement, a pact that still sparks debates among historians and scholars today. Was it a necessary act of appeasement or a cowardly betrayal? As we navigate through the labyrinth of historical facts and perspectives, we aim to shed light on these questions. This will take us from the build-up to the agreement, to the actual proceedings at the conference, and finally, the aftermath of this pivotal accord. Join us in this journey as we delve into the events leading up to this crucial agreement. Our story begins in the late 1930s, at a time when Europe was on the brink of another major conflict. The continent was still licking its wounds from the First World War, a conflict that had claimed millions of lives and left deep scars on the psyche of nations. The political climate leading up to the Munich Agreement was one of tension and apprehension. Europe was like a tightrope walker, balancing precariously on the edge of another war. At the heart of this tension was Germany, led by Adolf Hitler. Hitler's aggressive policies were causing ripples across Europe. His aim? To establish German dominance and expand his territory. One of his key targets was Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia was a young nation, having gained its independence only after the First World War, but it was strategically important, and Hitler had set his sights on it. His demands were simple, yet sinister. He wanted the Sudetenland, an area in Czechoslovakia populated largely by ethnic Germans. Hitler argued that these Germans were being mistreated and that they rightfully belonged to Germany. But the Czechoslovaks weren't ready to give up their land without a fight. They knew that losing Sudetenland would weaken their country and leave them vulnerable to further aggression. It was a classic case of the strong preying on the weak, and the rest of Europe watched on with bated breath. Leaders of Britain and France, Neville Chamberlain and Edouard Daladier, found themselves in a difficult position. On one hand, they wanted to avoid another bloody war. On the other, they knew that giving in to Hitler's demands might only embolden him further. The world was on a knife edge, and their decisions would have far-reaching consequences. In a bid to maintain peace, leaders of Britain and France decided to engage in negotiations with Hitler, setting the stage for the Munich Agreement. This was their gamble, their hope that appeasement would quench Hitler's thirst for power and bring stability back to Europe. But as we will see, things didn't quite go as planned. On September 29, 1938, key leaders convened in Munich, a meeting that would change the course of history. In the heart of Bavaria, the Munich Conference began. This wasn't a typical gathering of leaders. This was a desperate attempt to prevent the unthinkable, a Second World War. Four men held the fate of Europe in their hands: British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, French Premier Edouard Daladier, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, and German Führer Adolf Hitler. The atmosphere was tense, the stakes higher than ever. The main point of contention, the Sudetenland, a region in Czechoslovakia with a significant German-speaking population. Hitler was adamant. He claimed the region was rightfully German and demanded its cession to the Third Reich. Chamberlain and Daladier were in a tricky spot. They didn't want war, yet they also didn't want to appease Hitler's territorial ambitions. They were torn between their moral obligations and the fear of another devastating conflict. But in the end, they made a choice that would shape the destiny of Europe and the world. The key points of the Munich Agreement were simple, yet consequential. The Sudetenland would be ceded to Germany. In return, Hitler would promise peace, assuring the world that he had no further territorial ambitions. The leaders agreed, and with a stroke of a pen, the fate of the Sudetenland was sealed. The Czechoslovak government, not present at the conference, was pressured to accept the terms of the agreement. The Munich Agreement, hailed by some as a triumph of diplomacy, was signed, but the repercussions were far from over. This agreement, intended to secure peace for our time, as Chamberlain optimistically put it, would soon prove to be a tragic miscalculation. It wasn't merely a testament to the power of diplomacy, but also a stark reminder of the perils of appeasement. The Munich Agreement was not the end, but rather the beginning of a series of events that would plunge the world into the darkest chapter of the 20th century. In the aftermath of Munich, the world watched as the agreement's true implications unfolded. A pact signed under the guise of maintaining peace had in fact set the stage for one of the most tumultuous times in modern history. The Munich Agreement, signed in September of 1938, was meant to prevent war by allowing Nazi Germany to annex the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia heavily populated by ethnic Germans. However, the aftermath was far from peaceful. Let's consider the occupation of Czechoslovakia. By March of the following year, German troops had completely overrun the country, violating the very terms of the Munich Agreement. The Czechs, who were not even invited to the conference where their fate was decided, felt disillusioned and betrayed. They had put their trust in the democratic powers of the West, only to be sacrificed in the name of appeasement. This event, in many ways, marked the end of any faith in the policy of appeasement. The world began to see that Hitler's ambitions were not so easily satiated. His appetite for expansion was insatiable, and the Munich Agreement had only served to embolden him. In the grand scheme of things, the Munich Agreement did more to fuel the flames of war than to quench them. It gave Hitler the confidence to pursue his expansionist policies with even greater vigour. The world watched in dismay as he set his sights on Poland next, sparking the onset of the Second World War. And so, the Munich Agreement, once lauded as a symbol of diplomatic success, was now seen in a different light. It was no longer a beacon of peace, but rather a symbol of betrayal and appeasement. It was a stark reminder of the dangers of compromising with dictators, of sacrificing principles for the illusion of peace. It was a lesson learned the hard way, a lesson the world would not soon forget. The Munich Agreement, once seen as a beacon of peace, was now viewed by many as a symbol of betrayal and appeasement. With the benefit of hindsight, we can see the Munich Agreement as a key turning point in history. It's a testament to the complexities of international diplomacy, a snapshot of a world on the brink of cataclysm, grappling with decisions of war and peace. The Munich Agreement is often viewed through the lens of appeasement, a term that has since acquired a negative connotation. But let's pause for a moment. In the late 30s, the wounds of the Great War were still fresh. The idea of another global conflict was a nightmare everyone wished to avoid. So, when leaders of Britain and France chose to appease Hitler, it was a desperate bid to preserve peace. However, the lessons of history are rarely black and white. The policy of appeasement, while well-intentioned, was perceived as a sign of weakness by the Nazi regime. It emboldened Hitler, who saw it as an opportunity to advance his expansionist ambitions unchecked. The Munich Agreement, instead of preventing war, inadvertently set the stage for the most devastating conflict in human history, World War II. This leads us to the crux of the debate. Did appeasement prevent or encourage war? There's no definitive answer. It's a question of perspective, a balancing act between the desire for peace and the need to stand against aggression. The Munich Agreement serves as a stark reminder of the cost of miscalculation in international diplomacy. It underscores the importance of understanding an adversary's intentions and the dangers of underestimating their ambitions. It's a lesson about the perils of wishful thinking in the face of harsh realities. As we reflect on the Munich Agreement, it's not just about dissecting the past, but learning from it. It's about acknowledging the high stakes of peace and the tremendous responsibility it places on the shoulders of those who navigate the treacherous waters of international diplomacy. The Munich Agreement stands as a powerful reminder of the complexities of international diplomacy and the high stakes of peace. As we conclude our journey through the Munich Agreement, we are reminded of the importance of understanding our past. We've traversed the precipice of the prelude to the agreement, experienced the tension of the conference, and felt the aftershocks in the aftermath. We've reflected on the significance of this pivotal moment in history, its profound implications, and its resonating echoes that still influence world politics today. Whether you see it as appeasement or betrayal, the Munich Agreement serves as a stark reminder that the decisions of the few can dramatically shape the course of history for the many. It stands as a testament to the power of diplomacy, negotiation, and the consequences that can arise when these tools are misused or misinterpreted. Thank you for joining us today on Top Prime Rankings channel. If you found this video insightful, please like, share and subscribe for more fascinating historical journeys. Until next time, keep exploring history